Hello folks, you have made it to the end of your week. Absolute congratulations to you. I hope you are very happy that the weekend is here, and if you are not and you're working this weekend, then thank you for making sure that we can all have the time off that we can do, and we can get down to the shops and do our own thing and make sure that things are going well. If you really like what I do, then subscribe down below. The subscribe button is down there, and the notification bell is also down there. If you really like what I do, if you click that, then YouTube will tell you I am here. If you don't, then they won't. If you really like what I do, then the Patreon is down below. We do have a supporters part of the Discord, but I've just made one called Astral Backers, where I will be frequently talking, because it's quite hard to keep on top of things on the Patreon, because it's just hard to reply to everybody, because it's kind of like you're not really talking in real time. It's like a YouTube comment section, you know. So I'd like to talk to you in real time. So head on over to the Discord if you're on the Patreon, and we'll do that over there. And the Patreon is also, the Discord is also free for everybody. So head on down there. It's only the Astral Backers part of the Patreon, of the Discord that is behind the Patreon wall. The rest of it, 99% of it, is all free. So head on over there. I'm on there sometimes as well, having a little chat. And if you need anybody to talk to, you need to get you out of a slump or celebrate the hobby in any sort of way, head on there. It's free. The link will always be on the community part of the YouTube page, by the way. It used to be on the YouTube videos themselves, but I took it off because it keeps resetting for some reason. Anyway, let's get on with some hobby nightmares, shall we? So Jay says, this is a story about the consequences of lacking DICK, discipline. We are before the 3-minute mark, so I can't really say that word. And how a reconnection with the hobby was a major factor in rectifying one of the lowest points of mental health in my life. Than a controversial hobby nightmare. Okay, cool. So, to begin, I've been into 40k since I was about 10 years old. I'm now almost 26. And growing up at school, it and the community, me and my friends built around it, which alongside my other passion as a teenager, emo music, were probably the largest cultural impacts on me growing up. Okay, well, I'm not going to judge you too much on the emo music, because we've all been there. And most of us grow out of it. But to be honest with you, I think we all grow out of it in our 20s. And if you're 26 now, by the time you're in your 30s, you'll be back into it again. I've noticed that people in their 30s, they get back into emo music in a big way. Or when it comes on in a club, they'll sort of lose their shit and go mad. Anyway. However, when I begin at university, my ability to actively play 40k was hampered by money being tight, and with the release of 8th edition of 40k in my first year, whose change in rules style I really didn't like, I stopped playing 40k, although I would keep my interest in the lore of the setting, especially by reading the Horus Heresy novels. Well, there's the thing, man. When Horus Heresy does come out, you should have jumped in, and, you know, saved up and got yourself a box. University proceeded as normal for much of my degree, making friends, enjoying nights out, all stuff a normal uni student in the UK does. But it is here I should introduce my friend Dave, and his girlfriend Claire. Dave was one of my best friends at uni, as we both studied politics. Oh God, the arguers. Yeah, every politics guy I knew just wanted to argue about everything all the time. I had a philosophy student and a politics guy, and they would just... Oh, every conversation was just a slog. And despite holding very different political views, would become friends over shared academic interests. And once we moved out of halls, we agreed to live together alongside 2 of our other friends. Shortly after Dave moved in with us, he would begin seeing this girl, Claire. Claire was very different to Dave, as whilst his primary enjoyments were his active involvement in the local Conservative Party and his love for 60s rock, Claire was mainly interested in emo music, D&D, and Magic the Gathering, all things that I was also interested in, and that resulted quickly in me and Claire becoming good platonic friends. Oh no. I can see. Don't tell me you're gonna let me down here. I see where this is going. I'm wagging my finger at the screen already. This friendship would intensify... Oh, God, here we go. This friendship would intensify over the next year and a half for which they would date, with me and Claire often going on nights out as mates together to emo nights in our city, and her joining a D&D group I had with some of my other university friends. Dave would always be invited to these nights out and to play D&D with us, but would almost always refuse as he has no interest in either topic. This would result in me and Claire becoming almost as good friends as me and Dave. Okay. Dave is either really, really, really secure in himself and his ability to hold on to a woman, or he's oblivious and he's a nerd. You know, don't tell me you don't know what you're doing here, by the way. I'm not one of those guys who, if Claire's attractive, you know, I'm not one of those guys who says, oh, of course you can be friends with a woman. I mean, you can be friends with a woman, but, you know, like, let's be honest. Most of these situations, there's an ulterior motive. Let's be honest. Anyway. I know that sounds like a toxic thing to say, but we don't live in an ideal world, guys. If we lived in an ideal world, then yes, you know, you could be able to go out with anybody that you wanted, and there'd be no whispers, or there'd be no sort of, like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge going on. But, yeah, we don't live in an ideal world. Go figure. Eventually, though, Dave and Claire would break up, due to in no small part to Dave's lack of interest in each other's hobbies, and ultimately mutual differences, okay? However, this is not what Dave told us. Dave announced to me and my other housemates that Claire had cheated on him, which, whilst I was initially shocked and upset for him, as the story came out, parts of it didn't make sense. And I was very surprised, as Claire did not seem like the kind of girl to cheat on anyone, and had previously become hostile with another of her friends after finding out she had cheated on her partner. Whilst I didn't immediately speak to Claire about this, following D&D a few weeks later, I offered Claire a fag. Okay, fag in the UK is cigarette, so he's not offering her a gay person, just saying. Yes, hello, this is my gay friend Justin. No, he's actually offering her a cigarette. I offered her a fag and asked her to hear her side of the story. Okay, fair enough. It turned out Claire hadn't cheated on Dave, and after a series of bad arguments, she had decided it was never going to work out and broken up with him. She was very shocked and hurt to hear Dave had told her friends that she had cheated on him, especially as it had caused all of Dave's social group, bar me, to cut her off. Likewise, I was incredibly disappointed in Dave, and I felt I could no longer truly trust him, as it was now apparent that he had lied about someone we all cared about to win the PR war of our social group. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, man. But all you have right now is his word against hers. Has she offered you proof that she hasn't cheated on this person? I find it very alarming that you've gone against one of your friends so readily, like, you know, straight away. You've asked the woman to explain her side of the story. She said that your friend is lying, and you've immediately taken her side. I don't want to say that there's an ulterior motive here, but, you know, I'm just saying, right? She may be right. I mean, you may be right in supporting this girl, and I'm not in this situation. Maybe Dave's been acting shady all this way through, but still. Seems there has been no proof of it here. It's this word against this word. And, you know, this is why you should stay out of these situations. If I was in your shoes here, I wouldn't even ask her about it. I'd be like, hey, she's single now. You know? Hey, she's single now. Would it hurt Dave if I get with this person? Probably. So then I probably wouldn't do it. But I'd still be like, well, you know, maybe a couple of months down the line, like a year down the line, and I'll ask Dave, hey, do you mind if I go with this person? But, like, aside from that, man, no, just stay out of it. Needless to say, my relationship with Dave cooled immediately following this revelation. Again, was it a revelation? You don't know, man. Whilst my friendship with Claire returned essentially to what it had been when they were together. This state of affairs would continue for the remaining 3 months of the academic year, whilst me and the other 2 housemates would get a 3-person house together, as we had applied to do a master's. Dave would get a job on the other side of the city and move out to get a flat closer to where he worked. But the four of us would remain friends into the next academic year. Fair enough. Much would continue the same for the first few months until one night where me and Claire went to an emo night at one of the city's nightclubs. However, I had just called things off with the girl I'd been seeing in the week prior, and Claire had an unsuccessful date earlier on that day when we went out. So we were both on the pull, so to speak, when we went out. You can already guess where this is going. Yeah, I can guess where this is going. Yeah. Long story short, after a few too many drinks, me and Claire ended up going back to mine together. Now, Claire was an attractive girl, however, because of knowing her through Dave, I'd never seen her as anything other than a friend. Whilst I had a great time, and even now I'm hesitant to call it a mistake even now, we both agreed that it was a one-time thing that should probably be nothing more than a nice memory that we kept to ourselves. Okay, so here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. I'm going to call bullshit on Claire. Does that sound harsh? Yeah. Yeah. But I'm not in this situation, so please take what I say with a grain of salt. I'm calling bullshit on Claire saying that she didn't cheat on him. I'm just the way that she's acted in this story, I'm just calling bullshit on it. And listen, if you cheat, that's your thing. It doesn't make you a bad person, right? It means that you've made a mistake and you shouldn't be in that relationship anymore. But like, for you to still be friends with Dave, and for her to like willingly go home with you and just like, you know, do that, I don't know any woman, any girl that I know, and I know quite a few, who would do something like that. I just don't know any. I literally, you know, if there's any sort of, if there's any sort of like complication here, where okay, my ex's friend, this is my ex's friend, that I knew through my ex, I probably shouldn't go home with him. That would be a really scummy thing to do, right? Even if we're both single, even if we're both, you know, it would be a really shitty thing to do. At least until like, yeah, maybe share a kiss, maybe swap, maybe like say, hey, have a talk and sit down and say, hey, we actually quite like each other. Maybe we should give this a go. Then go to Dave and say, hey, man, like this is the situation. What do you think? And then go from there so you don't hurt his feelings, right? Just to go home with you and have sex with you. You know, drink is not an excuse. It's not an excuse. Because she got that drunk in your presence, knowing what might happen. It's not an excuse, man. I'm calling bullshit on the fact that she didn't cheat on him, or that nothing happened. Maybe cheating to her is different. Maybe she said, well, I didn't sleep with anybody else, but I kissed somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, maybe it means something different. I'm calling bullshit. This seems like the kind of girl who did do something in that relationship. It's just something that she didn't see as cheating, where Dave obviously did. That's what I'm thinking has happened here. Again, I don't know either of these two people, so take it with a pinch of salt. From what you've told me, that's the way I'm leaning. Okay. So it was a memory that we would have kept to ourselves, which would have been fine if my housemates hadn't been sitting on the sofa watching Friends as I walked her out. This blew any possibility of it not coming out, so a few days later, I came clean to Dave about what had happened. Dave went ballistic. Yeah, man, I mean, mate, he's got every reason to go ballistic, because you've essentially you haven't snaked his girlfriend, but you really have started taking his girlfriend out while he's with her, and you became a friend with her, you know, and that's not something that's natural. I've said this right from the start of the thing. That's not something that's natural, right? Going out with a woman, becoming friends with her, you want a shag. If you're both attractive people, you want a shag. That's it. I hate it when people say to me, oh no, it's not like that. No, it is like that. I'm sorry, it is. It is like that. That's the world we live in. If you're asexual, all power to you, man. All power to you. Or if you're sexually confused, you don't know what you are, all power to you. But if you take a woman out, and you're both attractive, and you're both single, that's a date. That's a date. Sorry. None of my friends would take my girlfriend out without me. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. I would never take their girlfriends out without them. Ever. It's crossing a line, dude. and you cross that line several times, and then you sleep with this girl after her and Dave had split up, after taking her side when Dave told you she cheated on him. He has every right to slap you right in your face right now. So, Dave went ballistic, punched me in the face, and blocked me on everything. Yep, he has every right to, man. He's every right to. It was clear he immediately went and talked to most of our friendship group, as I was rapidly blocked by many people in our group, though I would later find out that Dave had spun it as if it was something we had been planning behind his back when me and Claire hung out whilst he was dating. Well, to be honest, man, I get where he's coming from. I get where he's coming from. He hasn't spun it that way. Like, I've listened to this story that you've said to me, right? He hasn't really spun it that way. That's what's happened. because as far as I'm concerned, you're probably giving yourself painting yourself in a positive light, because this is your story, right? And you still come across as a little scummy. So I can't blame Dave for thinking that way. Now, it's worth mentioning that this is now February 2020, so before I could have a chance to rebuild any bridges, the COVID pandemic had broken out, forcing my uni friends to part ways back to their respective hometowns. Right. Remember when I say this all the time, bros before hoes. I say, this is omerta. You don't break bro code. This is why. Because these types of situations happen when you break omerta. When you break the bro code. Right? Men first. Treat your kings. Make sure you look after your fellow kings. Do not get hoodwinked by a woman. Don't. Even if it's just as friends. It's obvious to me that this Claire had her eyes on you from the very start, my friend. From the very start. She gets to go away scot-free now, and she's ruined your social circle. Yeah. This resulted in a very isolated lockdown for me. Very sorry to hear that, dude. As I would remain blocked by much of the social group. So aside from Claire, there would be very few people outside of my family I would be talking to. And over the next few months, I fell into a rather deep depression. That because of rather limited access services in the UK at the time period, it was not possible to receive professional help for. Yeah, the UK is terrible for anything to do with mental health. It's terrible. Which is part of the reason why I do the channel in the first place. Fortunately to me, I am very close with my parents, who would notice something wasn't right, and sought many ways to try and help me back on my feet. But eventually culminated in my mum ordering me to start collecting Chaos Space Marines box, as, in her words, "Your painting always made you so happy, it's a shame you don't really do it anymore." We found the real Chad of this story, ladies and gentlemen. It's Jay's mum. And it absolutely changed my life. The warm summer that came about during 2020 meant I could spend most of my days sitting in the garden painting. And when I finished the Chaos Space Marine box, I went up to the attic, dug out my old Blood Angels, and began painting them. My mood skyrocketed due to time outside and re-engaging with my hobby. Following the end of the summer, and having submitted my dissertation, I was given an offer to work assisting research from my dissertation advisor back in the city where I went to university. This was very nerve-wracking to me, as 8 months after I had left, there was still a lot of bad memories about what had happened. But fortunately, I was able to get a flat with my friend, Maisie, another woman, who was now working in the city. Yeah, dude, keep it in your pants this time. And if she tries anything, kick it to the curb and say, "I'll move somewhere else, thank you." Upon returning, my parents pressured me to continue painting, which I did, and it was a great decision. Maisie turned out to be a great flatmate, as she hated drama, didn't care about what had happened, and just wanted a few beers and a movie once a week. And we have since become great mates, for God's sake, and now are on our 3rd year living together. Okay, have you... Please tell me you kept it in your pants. I also began playing Warhammer again in my local independent games shop, following the launch of Horus Heresy boxes last summer. And I've become an active part of that community. Good. Dave is now a long-distance memory, and me and Claire are still good friends. In fact, we are actually going on a proper date this Friday. I wanted to share this with you guys, as while it worked out okay for me in the end, sleeping with a mate's ex would ruin my social life in an already difficult time. Which is, whilst Dave turned out to be a snaky mate, no, he didn't, mate. He didn't. And this is where we're going to disagree. The fault was with you. The fault wasn't with Dave, it was with you. Right? You're doing so well in admitting a lot of things that didn't go right in this story, apart from admitting your own fault. Your own fault is that you slept with this guy's ex after knowing this guy would be heartbroken by it because he already thinks that this girl cheated on him. You took her word over his straight away, no matter with no evidence, and then you went and slept with that woman. You're the snaky one in this story. And as far as I know, this is your story written by you, so you're coming across the best that you can in this story. Because you've written it. So for all I know, it could have been worse. Right? From reading this, you're not a bad person. You're a decent bloke. You made a mistake. I've made mistakes in the past, right? The problem is, you're trying to paint Dave as a snake. He's not a snake. From what you've told me, he's not a snake. Okay? He's heartbroken, yes. He's suspicious, yes. But from Claire's own behaviour, his suspicions had every right to be there, because you ended up sleeping with her anyway. So, I'm completely with you, dude. You seem like a top bloke. Don't get me wrong. But you need to, take a bit of responsibility here, I think. Because Claire always had her eye on you. Men and women do not go out on dates. Do not go out on dates when they're interested in each other. And those were dates, mate. I'm sorry. If you're there with her on your own, that's a date. That's a date. You're two attractive people. You're into the same stuff. You're attracted to each other, clearly, because you ended up, sleeping with each other. That is what it is. That is what it is. Yeah, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. This was kind of your fault. I'm not gonna say you're a dick, because you're not. You're not. But you give Dave a really hard time here, and unless you're leaving things out about him that you haven't put in the story, I really enjoy your channel and think the work you do to promote positive mental health within our community is amazing. Cheers, mate. And again, as I said, that is all well and good, and you haven't done anything totally wrong here. You've just handled it in a poor way, and turning it around on Dave makes you seem snaky, not him, Anyway, moving on. Drukari Rob says, "Hey North, I just got back from some serious bullshit and had to write to you about it. Alright. I have recently gotten a set of void-scarred Corsairs for Christmas, and built/painted them over New Year's. I've actually wanted a Corsair kill team since I was a wee lad, Robbie, and I saw the example kill team in the 4th edition kill team rules. Nearly 20 years later, I have the chance to play some and happily made my own lore and stuff. My best friend and I eagerly anticipated playing them. Now, I don't normally care to share homebrew, however, it's important to note that my friends and I typically play a homebrewed version of Kill Team that favours narrative more than anything. Just keep this in mind as the story progresses. Okay. So, my friend and I go to the local friendly game store, with the cool terrain tables we can play on and set up. My void-scarred Corsairs, known as the Bloodlit Throne, are basically Eldar vampire sorcerers. She had a group of Tempestus Scions, my friend. We set up on a table that looked like the interior of a ship, and made up a scenario where the Bloodlet Throne were attacking a prison vessel to take the convicts as food. We even set up some basic convict models with trash stats to represent them, and to close the small power gap between our kill teams. We began playing and having fun. That's brilliant. I really like the sound of this game. That's awesome. Meanwhile, a fedora with a person beneath it decided to spectate our game. He watched us play for a bit before we got to a specific action. The homebrew sub-faction trait of the Bloodlet Throne is to regain flesh wounds upon inflicting damage in melee. Then regain total flesh wounds/wounds on a melee kill. This upsets the onlooker. Up until now, he didn't notice or care about the dozen or so tweaked or changed new rules she and I had both been using throughout the game. But this system of me regaining flesh wounds in melee is what broke the camel's back. This guy started going off on me for cheating, saying no sub-faction that existed, and demanded that I present to him at once from the codex where my rules came from. Yeah, this guy's white knighting, dude. This guy's white knighting because you're playing a woman. To him, not my opponent, and he didn't even ask her about what we were doing. Upon hearing his voice, I also noticed that kind of autism accent and realised I wouldn't be able to easily reason with him. I tried anyway, and slowly explained that we were using homebrew rules, which he then accused me of making up on the fly to explain my cheating. Still never saying a word to my friend, who kept getting cut off whenever she tried to speak up. Yeah, because, he's white knighting, that's why. He's white knighting. That's what white knights do. Because women can't possibly stand up for themselves. That's what white knights think. No, you couldn't possibly defend yourself in a way that I can. Sit down, my lady. Let me take over. You know, what a twat. Eventually, he somehow shifted from me making up rules about drinking my enemy's blood to using an illegal configuration. The guy picks up my leader off the table and points out how he's using parts from 2 different Void-Scarred classes and isn't a Felarch, and thus cannot be a leader, let alone a Psychic Captain. Before I did anything regrettable, my friend snapped at him, yelling at him to put my property down, and the other people slowly turned to look at this caricature of a Neckbeard. He set down the model, though with enough force that he was clearly trying to break it, and knocked over several other models and bits of terrain. Dude, real this is... A minute later, he comes back with somebody from the staff and is making accusations in Spanish. My friend thankfully caught what he was doing and called him out again. Apparently he was accusing me of cheating, her of harassing him, and us both of using fake/illegal models. The convicts were third-party prints, and my captain technically wasn't a real class. He then talks about how I was cheating, and we were dicks to him, which when he was just trying to help, and we were stealing from the store by using third-party models. Once again, before I could use my pimp hand, the employee calmed him down and just pulled him elsewhere for a chat. Later on, the employee came back and apologised to us, since he saw and heard the whole thing, since the store isn't that big. We restarted our game from where we left off, and played fully without any further interruptions. We managed to finish and make it home. But the whole experience just pissed me off, and now I'm writing this. Also, I hit every red light on the way home, got cut off in traffic, and stepped into a puddle that was deeper than it looked. I hope your new year is going better so far. Stay safe and happy wargaming, North. Man, yeah, I mean, I would say this is a white knight, but obviously he's a white knight only up until she snapped at him, and he realises he's not getting laid. And that's when he turns on her as well. Unfortunately, guys, the hobby is populated by quite a lot of these people. And as much as I love to do the positive parts of the hobby to make sure that you're wanting to get out there and have fun and do your own thing, unfortunately, there are people on here just like this who just cannot stop getting in their own way and getting in their way of the hobby. It just is what it is, guys. I have come across people like this all of the time. I play quite a lot of homebrew rules against other people, and they play a lot of homebrew rules against me. And unfortunately, these people just exist. They just come over there, they've got to stick their oar in. You know what? As long as you're having fun in Warhammer, I don't give a fuck how you're playing it. It's people like this who suck all of the life and love out of the hobby. I don't give a shit if you've got autism or whatever. You know, have somebody there who can help you then, because clearly this guy's been in situations like this before, because the staff member isn't even surprised. I mean, Jesus. Really? Is that what we're doing? Anyway, love you all a long time. I will be back on Monday with some more Games Workshop stories. I will see you then. Oh, and by the way, the first actual lore video of next week is Iron Warriors. Should be interesting. See you then. Love you all a long time. Bye.